Greg Tapper. I'm the VFX artist here on Crowfall. I did the ballista effects on the 12-hour live stream from about 2 months ago. I'm going to show off some of the new zombie effects today. I'm going to do like a brief overview of 2 of them, and then we'll do a more dive, like technical demo of 1 of them. Right now I'm in Unity, and I'll also be using the popcorn effects editor here. All right, so this is the zombie now. So in Hunger Dome, you've seen the zombies just wandering around. We made changes that they're going to be underground and spawning. So once you get in their proximity, they'll come out of the ground. So we need to create this ice shard effect. He's like climbing out of the hunger. And if you die or you get out of range, he will go back underground. And fun fact, the devs have been controlling the zombies the entire time. We've actually been manning them behind the scenes. Right, Max? No, that's not true. John Gibson thought it was true. God, I hope you guys aren't as gullible. Obviously, in-game, we're not going to be having these zombies move around, but here I can move, control them. It's just a lot easier to test the effects. So this is the one effect I'll be going over. I'll be going over the many different parts, that smoke frost aura that's around him, the ice shards, the crack decal projection, and then this other one is the ice slam. She builds up ice on his hand and hits his target, stuns them. 12-second cooldown. So the ice builds up, the frost builds up around the hand, and then once he hits, there are ice chunks that burst out, and then there's also a frost poof on the target. All right, so let me get out of the scene, and I'll show you how the spawn was created. Okay, so I have the zombie spawn. Create a plane in this world so we can see how this is animated. Okay, so you'll see over the life of this, that projection is created and these shards shoot up, and then that's the duration of the animation, and then it fades away and shrinks. And these shards live underneath. So they're also scaling up. I'm gonna move the animation window, just make that larger so we can see what's going on here. So you'll see here under my effects prefab here that I have 2 projections. I have one for the cracks, one for the glow. So I painted this decal in Photoshop. Let me pull up what these sprites that I'm using look like. That's a lie. That's not where I put them. I know where to. Okay, so this is the one that's being used for the glow here. I created this like large starburst, and this one rotates a bit, just so it's not completely static. And then I painted this one here, which is actually, it's not a decal, it's multiplying this black crack decal onto the environment. Projections are a little cheaper than decals because it's not creating a mesh and then having it fit the terrain on the fly. So I went that route with this. Okay, so this is my animation timeline. Once the effect plays, I want these cracks to appear quickly. So I just have that scaled up here. I'm doing 2 things. I am scaling the projection and then also ramping up the intensity of it. So once it gets here, it's fully opaque. I'm doing the same for the glow here. You can't see the glow here because it's an additive projection. basically clamps the values at 1, and because it's higher than 1, this plane is a color. This plane is white, so it kind of gets clamped down. You don't see it here, but once we go into the scene, let me jump back in, and we can check out these animations there. So yeah, it's made of these 2 projections. I have that frost aura coming out, and also these like 20 ice shards. I'll go over those next.
Someone asked, how do you make the crystals and cracks appear at the same rate?
Yeah, I control that all in the animation timeline, and I can show you after I launch this scene where I'm setting up those keyframes. I chose the night, but I will just drop the effect into the world here and then go to it. Okay, this needs a target. So I'd have to do that on the zombie. So these little diamonds here are my keyframes, and I'm basically defining when they all appear. So here you're seeing the decal appear, and that's actually being controlled here. So you can see this value of 2.376. That's actually scaling from 0 to 3 over the course of, this is frame 16, it's frame 6, so over 10 frames this is scaling up. So it's 1/3 of a second at 30 frames per second. And you can see the value changing here as that's scaling up. So I control all of that here, and all I'm doing is I'm creating keyframes around that time so that they all come up at the same time. And I get a little bit more control of that when I look at my curves. So I'm selecting on the orthographic size. This should actually be flat here. And you can see that it's just, I'm gonna make this one linear. So we get a faster start to when that's coming out. It's not really gonna be noticeable over 10 frames, but, and then it just kind of like slows down slightly towards the end. And that's what that like flattened curve at the end means. It's basically ramping up, and then you'll see that like the increments of how large that's getting is much smaller towards the end here, because I'm like leveling out that value. So here was 2.5, and it's only 2.7 here, and then 2.9. Whereas back here, it's going up by 0.4 in size. And that's how I control the timing of the animation. Like some things will ease in, ease out, and not everything gets from point A to point B at the same rate. And I'm doing the same thing with the shards down here. So this was a fun one. I basically started with the final position of the shards. Oh, I turned it off. That's why it was working. All right. Let me delete this prefab. What did I do? There we go. When I toggled the shards off to show you guys the decal, I toggled it off, but it created a key for that and disabled the shards. So that's why we also weren't seeing it in the scene. But here they are. So basically, I started with the final position here. I took a shard, each of these models. See that I have a bunch here, because I wanted a custom animation. I wanted them to come up at separate times. So in order to do that, pain in the ass, I had to build them separately. One of these shards were made by Aaron. He made them for the Ranger's Archer stake, but they were totally great for this. So if we created a single mesh, I wouldn't be able to animate these at separate times. So I took 2 or 3 different shards, so we get some variety in here, and they're rotated in different scales, so they don't look exactly like the same shard. Like you're seeing different texture patterns on all of these. And I mean, you gotta do that in games. You gotta turn things around and just make them look different so that you're not bloating the project and we get a smoother running game. So yeah, I started with the final position here, and then I basically went into my orthogonal, Let me hide this plane so we can see it. And I was viewing this at one piece at a time, but basically, so that's the final position. I was taking each of these shards and then going to the previous keyframe and then just scaling them down and moving them in the opposite direction that they were facing. So that over time, I'm animating it like jutting out of the ground. This is the top view. But if I look at it from the side view, you can see that this piece juts out of the ground like that. And every piece is doing the same thing. I also start with all of these on the same frame. And then you can see on this sheet, this dope sheet, which is just an easier way of visualizing your keyframes as opposed to all these curves. Like if I select all of this, I'm not going to know what is what. So this is just a lot cleaner. If I click on some of these animations, I'll be able to just see like the position. And if I just want to see like the X values, I can see that here. I'm doing the same thing here. So I am, the animation is starting really fast and then it's easing in. So it's just like slowing that animation in as it gets to its final position. I'm doing that for each of these shards. And then you can see that I'm actually offsetting each of these animations so that the shards are coming up at separate times, and that makes a difference. It's only over the course of like 10 frames. This is 16, right? Oh, 20, 14 frames. But that's enough of an offset to... there we go. That's enough of an offset to create this staggered animation. Just gonna move some of these windows around so we can still see my animation timeline. Usually I have 3 monitors, so I'm not working with all these windows crammed in, but I want you guys to see everything. I don't want to be juggling windows. But yeah, that's how that was created. And then the fade out, all I'm doing is I'm animating that opacity color, which is done on each of these too. Yeah. And that's a linear fall off over 5 frames. It's an even shorter time, which is like a 1/6 of a second at 30 frames per second. Okay, so this animation is turned on. So the other 2 are the projections, and those were those are placed above, and it's basically firing down these light rays that are projected on the surface that you're on. And I can call that out. You didn't see the projection on the shards themselves because I called that out. So we're only going to see it on the environment. We're not going to see it on the characters. And then I also have that glow spinning very slowly using this script. Getting a little technical on this one for an overview, but this last piece is the spawn, the smoke aura that was coming out. Again, I'm using popcorn effects for creating that. And basically, let me show you how this was created. There's a slight delay in this animation, so let me put that in. So on this one, I started with this like just infinitely coming out. If I check this infinite box, yeah. So these particles are just infinitely coming out. I wanted more like waves, like every time he takes a step, you're seeing another puff of dust. So what I did for that was I set the duration of the effect, which is about 2.6 seconds. And then I have these curves that can control when those bursts are created. So if you watch this, you're going to see like 4 pulses. And they're creating more of these ring shapes as he's making bigger movements. So you'll see here's the first half one, then you're seeing that second one, third one, and then the 4th one. And that's the polish work that, you know, the last 10% of the work that takes 90% of the time is just going back and making those tweaks. And that's what we're doing for some of these older archetypes. We got Hunger Dome and Siege Perilous together quickly, and we had to cut some corners to get those things working. But now we have we have another effects artist here, Aislinn, who's been awesome, and because we have someone else to do these effects, we also have a little bit more time to polish. We're still pretty under the gun. We got a lot of archetypes to put out. God, I almost slipped on the next archetype we're doing. Yeah, so I have 2 different effects here. I have the dirt, and that nice layering just creates a little more variety in here, as opposed to just being a blue smoke cloud. He's coming out of the ground too, so we don't want it to just be like totally frost. It actually helps the frost stand out more because it has those darker particles behind it. And you'll see here on the frost, I have the draw order to be higher, so that those particles are always appearing in front of the dirt particles, which have a draw order of 10. Okay, it doesn't matter where that is as long as it's less than 12. That's just the order that these particles are being drawn on the screen, and the more recent that is, things are always drawn on top. So that's why you're going to see these particles always in front. This may get a little wonky if I put it behind. Okay, so you're seeing those black particles on top now, but it reads much better in front. So basically how this is working is I create this mesh that is just a cylindrical shape, so I can pull like velocity values, like which direction these particles should fire from. That's what I'm using here, right? Yep. So I'm referencing my velocity sampler here, and I'm making sure that it's only firing out in those directions. I don't want it really going up or down. If I multiply that, yeah, we'll get more of that rise out of it. Oh, it's dying too soon. Okay.
Not you.
All right.
It's just tennis. He wants to know if you made the tactical orbital laser effect for the Myrmidon Smash. I'm guessing he's referring.
The whirlwind?
Well, no, not spin the wind. Is he talking about
the Colossus Smash?
Yes, Colossus.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, what about it, man? I can pull it up.
No, don't humor him. Don't humor him.
Is it not? Should I make it larger? Is that the problem?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the whirlwind isn't bright enough, actually.
Yeah, look at that.
That's what he's talking. Oh,
yeah.
Yep. That's definitely it.
Yeah, so you don't see the trails in here. We did that in Unity, but this is the particle effect. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. It's pretty simple, but I'll quickly run you through this. I don't set schedule. Yeah, so this is made of this like giant meteor coming down as he strikes, and then each of these impacts, you got that generic large one, and then I wanted to add more directionality to it, so more of these particles like shooting out on the ground, and that creates that awesome shape. Yeah,
That's pretty sick.
that was a fun one. Not to say the zombies not fun. These are a lot of fun too. It's frustrating until you get the values that you want. And I have a lot of these values, and when I go into the next effect and like break some of that stuff down, like I can quickly run you through it, but I gotta like reference these values because it's a lot of like playing around once you get what you want working. Like I can create a lot of curves like you saw in Unity to control how things are done, but a lot of this is also done in code. So like, this references a curve. Actually, I'm referencing these two curves for my color and size here, but the way these work are I'm defining all of these values on the spawn script. So once a particle is created, it's going to inherit everything that's said here, like the rotation speed, how long the particle is going to live for, the initial size, and then I have another script down here, the evolver script, that gets checked every frame. So this is where I'm changing the behavior of the particle. If I change this to, I don't know if this will be visible. it's hard to see, but so one particle is its alpha is changing and its size is changing over time. Like it's starting smaller, which it is referencing this curve here. So it's getting multiplied by this value, so I can have like an initial size. And over the course of its life, you can see that it's kind of like stopping its size towards the end because I'm like creating a little hill here and bringing it back down. It actually fades out before it starts dropping, so you don't really see that. This is the alpha curve. So it's going to start off transparent, and then we're going to get to see that solid particle, and then over time it's going to fade back out. So next one that pops up. Yeah. And then, I mean, this is definitely easier to see on a lot less particles sometimes. That's probably too many particles. Yeah. I forget what that value is at. That's probably it. But I go back and forth a lot between like working with a few particles to like what the final thing looks like. I mean, it's the same with painting. Like you gotta zoom out sometimes and just look at the big picture. But sometimes you really need to just go into that detail to just have more control over how things behave. And sometimes it's hard to see what a lot of the particles are doing. Like the rotation speed sometimes is a little more difficult to see when everything's spinning. But if I crank that value down, then I can make those adjustments a little more easily. All right, this is very similar to the frost aura effect I can show real quick, which is the aura that lives around the zombie indefinitely. This one has like other white, colder particles coming up. Old animation, but this one has more of like the infinite particles where I'm not like pulsing anything out. One, because it has to live forever. I can have it pulse over time, but this just looks better, and it looks better as the zombie's walking. So that first spawn animation, the zombie's not going to be walking. So those pulses look really good from a stationary position, but it would look a little weird from here. As he's walking, he's creating these rings. So it's cool. It actually creates a slightly unexpected trail behind him as he's walking. Let me start this again and we can see it. It's fun. I mean, that's pretty much a spawn. Then I just tied everything under this one prefab, and I can show you how that's hooked up in the powers.
So people in chat are curious if there will be a way to tone down the intensity of the effects, so like they look really cool, but in a 100-person fight, it might just get a little bit crazy.
So we're in the process of creating LODs. I can show you how that works. That's a good question. Let me not do it on this one. Yeah, definitely. And there'll be user settings where you can have the option to crank that down, and then there are automatic settings that kick in when there are too many people, or if someone's too far away. You don't want all of these particles being computed. This isn't a lot of particles. This goes up to 250, which is actually really low for something to look like this. But when there are a lot on screen, yeah, that adds up. That 8 players, they'll go up to 8 zombies at least, will go up to 2,000. And we have ways of lowering that. So I have this LOD attribute that I created, and this controls the amount of particles being created. So we have a new technical artist here who's going to be hooking up a lot of this stuff. And it's going to be awesome. There's going to be a performance improvement for sure. Okay, so that value is being multiplied by 1. So these are the full particles, and maybe from farther away, you're only going to see that many particles. That goes down to like 150. I can bring this down. Like from far away, you'll still get the idea, and it's only drawing 15 particles. So yeah, for sure. We're always thinking about performance and how to get this to look as good as possible while not making it incredibly difficult to play. Cool, yeah. Where was I on spawn? I guess I showed you guys the 4 parts and how the animator's controlled there. I always like creating these proxy sizes for the effect. I don't even know if you can see it here. Yeah, okay. I create these objects just so it's easier to see how large of an effect I have to create. And yeah. All right, so the slam effect. Let me show that while I'm in here. This zombie is hilarious. I feel like a shark, just like swimming around these nights. And then just pop out and build up that ice and smash him. Some of this UI is getting in the way, but that's only because he's an NPC. UI doesn't get in the way. It only enhances gameplay. I think Billy's watching. I'm like, this UI. It's because he's so close to the bottom of the screen. Players normally aren't going to be down there.
Poor Billy.
Yeah, and this hand is just like being covered by press Z to toggle combat mode. So I'm going to hide some things. I'm going to hide everything except the watermark. Okay. Just jumps out. He's not going to jump out of the ground like that. He's going to spawn out and then pop it. See what I mean about UI enhancing gameplay? Like, I don't know what my cooldown is. I'm going to go remove that so Blair can kill me when I put it in the project. All right. This is Slam. Oh yeah, I can show you how these are hooked up anyway while I'm in here. Basically, this one's done a little differently. Let me check down here. Okay, so the zombie slam effect is attached here, creating the effect on itself. I go here, this is created on the left hand. He's bringing his left hand across him and then like back fisting his target. And this is set to attach to the hand, so it's not just created in the world and left there. We want this to stay on his hand. And then in the power here, I can control everything. I can control the cooldown, the resource amount. He doesn't have a resource amount because he's an NPC, but the same for players. You'd be able to see how much of a resource it would cost. And I could change the cooldown right here too. So now I could go back in game and be totally unstoppable once this window goes back. Strike him again while he's down. All right, we also have the NPC tell on this one. This one has like a longer warm-up. Like you can see this ability coming, and it's also going to stun you. So it's something that the players are going to want to know before it comes. Like, hey, he's pulling his arm back. I should back away so I'm not stunned. So we have that little red star glow in there. And as that fades, the ice builds up around his hand, which is just a mesh. And then I have 2 other particles on his hand. You're going to see that there's this like little white puff that appears as he's like right about to strike. And then there's that blue streak. As he brings his arm up, I created this like icier blue trail. And that has some motion to it. I can slow this up so we can see what's going on a little better. Whoa. So here you're going to see that mesh builds up on his hand. You got that one little puff. And then he creates that blue trail. And then you see those ice chunks. And then there's another poof that appears on the knight himself. And that long white shader is his hit flash shader. This is at 10% speed, so that all happens way faster here. Cool, so I'll show you guys how this is built. Do I want to leave the scene? Yeah, let's leave it. So similarly, I'll create a a single prefab here, so it has the poof and the ice on his hand, and also the trail. Yeah, those are my 3 pieces here. I have the ice mesh, which is this block, and then I have my slam particles. This is for the trail. So this is what I work with when creating a trail. And this requires me to go back and forth into the scene to see how that looks, because this is going to be attached to the hand, and then as it's moving, I'll test it here real quick. It's going to create that trail, and it looks way better than it does here because he's creating that like natural arc, and then I'm also having the particles inherit the velocity of his hand. So like even after they're created in space, they're moving a bit. So like you'll see that if I jut this to the right, those particles are going like just a little bit further than I dragged. See that particle went like way right. And that just creates the motion as he's arcing that these particles are kind of like firing forward because they're coming off of his hand, and it should like inherit some of that velocity. So this is made of like only 2 different parts. I have these little aura particles that were created. A lot easier to see when there are a lot less of them. So yeah, but they create that cool shape, and I have them stretching. They inherit, like they take the velocity value and then they stretch the particle based on that velocity amount. And if I crank that value up, it's going to stretch way more when it moves. Yeah, so we're seeing that like large stretch of the particle. It creates a really cool effect. But I mean, I could put any image in here. I created one specifically for today. There we go. So I get Gordon, Todd, Blair, Melissa in here. Right now they're being rotated. And then just drag their heads. Ice cold. If it were ice cold, it would just be Blair though. So we could change that. We could do like just ID2 here. I love Blair.
That's the coolest effect I've seen so far. Can we? How do we get this in game?
We could get this in game
Do you have a
easily.
picture-
I just have to bake this. That's all.
Do you have a picture of my face that you could put in there?
No, I could get one. Are you on the team page yet?
I don't think I am, which is a crime. When you think about it.
These interns expect so much from us.
We're not interns anymore, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you on the website?
Well,
No.
like, you got me there.
You-
You got me there.
He's not really an employee. Okay, but for real, let me undo this. So yeah, it's made of these two parts, that aura part, and then I created these like other ice shards that appear really quickly, and the reason I did that is because I felt like this was just a little lackluster. Like we're creating that shape, but this like just adds a little bit more texture to it. Again, I can only test so much here. I have to keep going back and forth into Unity and pulling up the zombie and just seeing how that looks on his trail. And then there's this ice mesh, which I created, which I animated very similar to the ice shards in the spawn. Let's see. So here's my slam. So I'm actually timing when those the puff and the trails appear and disappear, and then I'm also controlling the scale of the mesh here. So that's all happening here. It starts, actually the scale stays the same. Somebody said something.
Yeah, they're just. Well, Kappa John says, Max, tell him his effects in game look amazing.
That's not what he said.
No, that's what he said.
All right.
And then Gaming Exports does not believe that I am me, so he told me to look at the camera. But then if I do that, then I'm buying into John's
Yeah.
theory.
John's been calling Max an attention whore.
Gibson, not O'Neill.
Yeah,
Different
Gibson.
John.
Gibson.
Shit.
Just shitty John. I feel like that should be public knowledge. Okay, yeah, similarly, I'm controlling the opacity here. Just getting that to fade, and that's happening. As soon as he pulls his arm back, that ice is building up. And I get the timing of all of this from the animation itself. I believe Doggett did all of the zombie animations, which are pretty awesome, Doggett. I don't think you get enough credit.
And be careful about summoning Doggett.
God, he's going to be just
You know the consequences of something.
pressing his face or other body parts against the glass. Yeah, let me just pull up that zombie so you can at least see where I'm getting the timing. And it's just a lot easier to see the animation here. I'm gonna rip this off. Whoop. Why? I may have grabbed the wrong model here. Oh, I know why. Okay, I dragged the whole avatar. I have to drag the model. Just not thinking. There we go. See, he's got that sweet build up. I can see my frame number here, so I'm just matching those frames in the animation of the mesh and when those particles are being created. And then this whole prefab gets attached to the powers, similar to the spawn. So yeah, so I have the ice building like right there, and then he strikes. And then I'm creating this illusion of like the mesh actually breaking. So at this point, like as he connects his strike, I'm just having the mesh turn off. Like it over one frame just becomes invisible, and then I play the hit effect, which is the ice chunks breaking and the poof coming off of it. I don't know what to call it. It's just a poof. Some of these names get a little weird when you're naming effects files because they're made of all these parts, and you just gotta be as descriptive as possible. And like Aislinn will just understand what things are when we're working on the same files. She'll know what poof means if she opens this.
She's watching, by the way.
Is she?
Yeah, so if you say anything mean about her, just know
We should
she'll
get.
hear it.
Aislinn should come in here.
Don't mention the snorting.
I didn't say it. Aislinn's great. It's weird now. Now I feel like I'm talking to her. I gotta stop complimenting her. I feel like I got that from Blair. Blair doesn't compliment anybody, and that's his way of pushing you to work harder and harder until you question your own existence. I don't even know what I'm doing. What am I doing right now? What was I checking? Oh, the hit effect. The hit effect on the zombie. Okay, so that's made of those three parts, the poofs, and I'll go into popcorn and show you how those work, but these are the ice chunks. That's an isometric view. Yeah. So these are a lot darker here because there's no lighting in this empty scene. Yeah, so once that strikes, once the damaged hit collider hits its target, it's going to play this effect at the target's chest, which I define all right here. Not here. Here. So I have it attached at the chest. It's going to play the ice break, and then it's also going to play this frost poof, which is dun dun, this here. This was another small, simple. Effects are really easy if you just go at it like one piece at a time. Just like you just keep layering on the complexity of it, and You could do that with a lot of effects for reference. Like just look at things and try to look at it piece by piece, and then as you build it, you'll be pretty surprised what comes of it. Okay. So yeah, this is just one layer. That's not really being used here. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'm doing something similar here. I'm controlling the alpha and the size of it over time. I wanted these like, it's an impact, so I wanted this like burst out, but I also wanted the frost to like slow down as it came towards the end of its life. And that's what the drag does here. If you hover over amount of drag affecting particles, this will allow the particles to be affected by external winds and flows. It's not really saying it's slowing it down, but that's weird. But that's what it does. It's also used for like turbulences. You'll see that if I bring this down, it's going out way farther than it was. And it's not really slowing down like it was here. If I crank that way up, yeah, it's dying or stopping its velocity like way sooner. So yeah, not everything's done through curves, and some things are just easier to do through code, and vice versa. So you see here that I'm having each particle like live for a random time between 0.55 and 1.35 seconds. It's rotating each of those frost particles 360 degrees. This is in radians, 2 pi. And then I'm cycling through like 1 of 4 textures. Technically 5. Yeah, I'm using 5 here. So what this is doing is it's picking a random texture from my atlas here. And you'll see that it says ID here when I scroll over a texture. And these are the values I'm cycling between. So I want to randomly pick between 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. So this little function here just picks one between those 4. I like this one. Actually, like this little mist one kind of broke up how dense it was looking. So I added that in there. And like there are a lot of things I just went in here and tweaked one thing at a time. Like, so this was a little too opaque. So I just went in here and have the opacity of it. I kind of halved everything, the color and the opacity, and that just worked out a lot better. So like this is where I'm getting all my color values. I'm defining the brightness back in the spawner script, which gives it a value of 0.8 to 1. And that's using that for the red, blue, and green value. And if they're all the same, you're going to get a grayscale color. Because they're so high and closer to 1, we're going to get white. And then my color in it here, I am lerping here. I define my 2 colors here, and this is like a blue and then a slightly less blue. Oh, Dog It. Dog It has been summoned. Here he comes. Oh god, don't look at him.
What's up? You were summoned. For?
Or just companionship.
The chat summoned you. They said your name 3 times.
The last chat didn't like me at all. They wanted to kill me.
They were a little bit.
Yeah,
anti-dog.
Draco's fans are a lot meaner than.
You're not in the shot right now.
Yeah.
You'd have to move over.
Oh, I
here
have to move
probably.
over.
I can make room for you.
Sweet flip-flops.
Thank you. I ran out of socks today.
Dog It has the cleanest feet.
I do. I wash them.
They don't smell. Some people have taken off their shoes in here with socks, and it's just super rank. I'm not going to mention names. There was a whole whose feet stink the most war when we first moved here.
And then who's destroying our bathroom? It's
Ah,
not anybody at our craft.
Yeah, it's not for craft.
It's impressive. Like, never in my entire... I grew up in Alabama. Never in my entire life have I smelled something like that. And it's consistent on a daily basis. What you working
So
on?
the brightness... Just showing how I'm making like different particle effects and like layering them on your great zombie animation.
You really need to stick your face in there. They're not gonna be able to see you.
Is this better?
That should. If you get a little closer than that, that'll work.
You know, these cameras aren't really conducive for like couple streaming.
No,
Couple
we didn't really
streaming.
design it like that intentionally, actually.
We'd have to do it
Anybody
on
know
the
the channel?
longer end of the desk.
Do we have some James Goblin, some Nocturnal Demise? Can't.
Oh, it's tennis.
Tennis. Hey, dude.
You know what? I could pull up the zombie if you want to talk about your animation.
Sure, that was the first thing I did here.
Your back fist, yeah, back in September of last year.
Yeah, almost a year ago.
It was about a year ago.
Yeah. I by the way, my 1 year anniversary was last Sunday, I think.
I guarantee nobody's clapping.
No, they're not. They're clicking on another
Kate
stream.
says hello, Doggett, as well.
Oh yeah. Hello, Kent. Kent?
Canth?
I say Kent in my head.
I almost said Kate, but I was wondering that earlier. Maybe he'll clarify in the chat.
What?
Your eyes are so blue.
They are. Hopefully my wife's not watching. She gets jealous every time you say that.
Does she compliment them as often as she should?
No.
Ghost Tigress.
Use
says,
your sweet
"Congrats on
back
your
fist."
anniversary."
Who did?
Ghost Tigress. Or
Ghost
Tigress.
Tigers. Tigris. Sounds like an arch nemesis.
Yeah, I was gonna say it.
Should spawn near the dummies.
Yeah.
But yeah. I like the anticipation of the strike. I like how he builds that up. And then,
Yeah, we because your character covers up the guy, we had to really kind of push the NPCs off to the side to do these attacks, so you can actually see
oh,
the
so you can see it
telegraphs.
coming. Yeah, wow, I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Especially like the champion, his body completely blocked the zombie, so you never knew like what really was going on. Hopefully, like if we get some better like camera angles in there in the future, this will really help out with combat.
It's fun. You guys are going back and touching the movement on these guys, right? Because this is the new zombie, and he's
faster.
he's
Yeah.
faster, so we need to adjust for that in the animation.
Yeah, we'll have to make a faster zombie.
I mean,
walk.
or just add ice skates. I mean, he's coming out of the hunger.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
We
I
should
think they
totally-
would have adapted to that.
I'm glad we finally got to use that animation, like, cause I remember when I built it originally, I was on that old crappy desktop, and
The dog box?
yeah, the dog box. It was Justin's old computer, and
Justin was a much more patient
there
person.
you go. I do not put up with slow computers. Yeah, I did that animation because we might have spawning in it, and it just kind of sat there for a really long time.
It's pretty easy to get a new computer because all you have to do is show someone the math of how much it's costing them versus the cost of the laptop.
Yeah.
And there'll be a new laptop on your desk before you get back. Sometimes. Thanks, Doggett. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Spice up the stream.
It didn't need spicing up.
I bring the ginger spice.
The ginger spice. Never mind. I was watching Spice Girls the other day.
You were watching Spice Girls?
I was watching some music videos and just seeing. I don't remember Wannabe and Spice World's music video.
Oh, yeah.
Spice World's was kind of like a.
It's high production.
It's like a high production, like post-apocalyptic, not post-apocalyptic, but like
Yeah, they're like Mad Maxing.
it was like this
throwing shit
cyberpunk.
around.
Yeah, it was awesome,
Wait, what?
dude. Yeah, back in like
Think back when you were 5 years old.
2 years
I
old.
vaguely
Two-
remember Spice
in like
Girls.
'97.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 3, so.
Yeah, they're just singing in front of the camera and they're in the middle of the desert and they're all like, Mad Max punked out.
Which song is this?
Spice World or Spice Up Your Life.
Spice Up Your
It
Life.
was from the
yeah.
Spice World album,
I'm
The
gonna look.
second album.
the second album.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Did you ever see the movie?
Yeah, there was
No.
like no plot to that movie.
There wasn't. I remember
They just
like
got on
one
a bus.
scene like where Baby Spice is talking to a male stripper and she's showing him all of her like stuffed animals.
Okay, all right. Let's. I am gonna look up that video, but let's get back to particle effects.
Okay.
There's history that needs to be taught here. So what?
So I mean, that was it. I mean,
Yeah.
your name came up,
Yeah,
and
we
you
talked
came
about
in. You
Spice
came in
Worlds.
way later than I expected you to.
Blair had a question, and yeah, I'm animating the animation. So I'm trying to.
Do people know about?
What the animation?
Oh my god,
I don't know.
that's fine. That's fine. Everything's fine. It didn't come out of my mouth.
Mm-mm. It didn't really come out of mine.
This is more your nose. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna get back to explaining how this works. And
You want me to leave now?
you can leave now. Thanks for being here.
Guess I'll get back to work.
I'm sorry, man.
Say bye to the camera
You
though.
wanna grab lunch later?
Bye, guys. Yeah, I'm hungry, man.
All right.
I haven't eaten today.
I think we're on for like 15 more minutes.
Yeah. Get some Wendy's.
Wendy's. Okay. All right. Back to that slam hit effect, which is made of 2 different parts. Like how can you?
If
How
I
can
say
you
bye,
just-
dog it.
Bye, dog it. Okay, yeah. So let me show you this in Unity. You watch Rick and Morty?
I have watched some Rick and Morty, but not enough.
There's an episode where this creature like inhabits a planet and she like takes over every person and her name is Unity. And I think of her every time now.
Oh.
It's just stuck in my head. Rick and Morty's awesome. Oh yeah, I showed you the ice block here. Once that ice block is fully opaque, I am triggering this puff. I spelled it puff here. So I start that a little bit earlier, so that appears on his hand. And then this is the trail. So the trail is going to live. So this is once it's opaque and about to move. And once it starts moving on his hand, I have it appear. And then once it connects to strike, I have it disappear. So let me pull that up one more time. I mean, I'm pretty much wrapping up. Are there any questions?
I'll ask. Oh, actually, we did have a couple earlier that I didn't get a chance to ask. Someone wanted to know why you chose to use popcorn effects over shuriken.
Oh God, that's a good question. I cry every day. I have to work in shuriken. So there's so much more control in the popcorn editor at the cost of like a little bit of integration into your project. Of course, it's awesome having shuriken right there and being able to create these particle systems. But I don't have the same control. Like there are curves in there, but like I can reference certain values from certain curves to affect different things. Like I can just call this my alpha curve, but I could use it for size. I could reuse these curves. I just have a lot more control over what I can do in here. It doesn't require knowing that much scripting. I mean, this is super basic. If you learned like just basic programming syntax and how to use operators, that gets you like 90% here. And then they have their documentation and you'll be able to find out like what rand means and like picked it up pretty quickly. But what you get out of it is unbelievable. Like I can layer all these effects in here, and of course you can do that with shuriken, and you can have your sub emitters. But I feel like in this like hierarchy setup, it's much easier to see. It's much easier to make changes. Let me go back into Unity, and I could pull up the ice blocks. So the ice chunks that break, I did make using shuriken, and the reason for that is because popcorn cannot light meshes, cannot use Unity's lights. They can't do it yet. Hopefully that's an update one day, but it's not like crippling. I could have made the ice chunks. They don't really need to be lit, but a lot of our debris that we have on like the champion and stuff, those rocks are created in Unity so that they can be lit. Like it's weird if you're in a cave or out in the daytime and this rock is just like the same color. It should reflect the lighting, the environment it's in, and you should be able to see shadows and stuff. And you can't do that with popcorn. That's not to say you can't use meshes. I use meshes. I use meshes to create a lot of different effects, like a lot of ring effects. The Druid especially used a ton of like additive particle meshes, and that's how I created like a lot of the rings that like burst from her on her essence scram and stuff. But yeah, popcorn is awesome.
So 2 more questions, and they go hand in hand.
Sure.
The script or the code that we see in the popcorn editor.
Yeah.
What language is that?
It's kind of their own. It's a little bit like C#. I know C# and ActionScript and JavaScript, and it's pretty similar. You're really just coding in snippets. You're not really creating classes. You're not doing any object-oriented programming. The most I do is like you create these variables, these fields here, and you define whether they're a float, an integer, And like if I define them here, then I can use them elsewhere. Like usually all these variables are going to be either defined by popcorn, like I can just go and reference rotation because I have a rotation node here. So that variable becomes available. Velocities here because I have a physics node. Yeah, I'm kind of straying off from that question, but basically.
No, actually, the follow-up question was, do you manually write that script, or is it automatically generated and then you edit it?
Okay, I can show you what a default file looks like. I always start from a default file, and I created my own default file based on what I need most. So they have like an effects simple file. I'll just create that. I'll create that in the work in progress folder. Yeah, so this is what they give you to start. They give you simple particles. Over 2 seconds, it's spewing 5. We're seeing it infinitely because it's looping. So over two seconds, it's spawning 5 particles a second, so you're seeing 10 particles. And then the script here, they basically just give you the life, the size, the color, and the velocity is firing upwards. It's finding the scene axis and using that as its vector. Velocity needs a vector, so if I told this to go in the x direction, this is going to be x, y, z, these 3 values. So 1 in the first position is the x direction. So you can see my little world manipulator here. You can see x is facing to the right, so if I restart this, they're going to fly to the right because I told it to. If you go over documentation on their website, it's the editor is free to use, so anyone can go and download this. If you want to get the plugin for Unity and stuff, that costs money, but you can also get a free license until you publish your game if you're using this for your game. This function, just stuff I picked up from their documentation, creates a random vector. So it's going to create something, anything between -1 and 1. So it's basically, you don't really need to type this, but in those 3 fields, it's going to give me a value between -1 and 1, and that's on each axis. -1 is going to be left here for the x, and +1 is going to be right. So it's doing that in all 3 axes, and what that's doing is it's giving me a random vector for each particle. And I told you guys that this script here happens on the first frame. Like when the particle's instantiated, it's going to inherit these values. And it's not going to change over frame. So that's why that particle keeps firing in the other direction. If I created another script here and change the velocity per frame, then we're going to get like all this jittering. If I were to just change it like really quickly, or I could do it over time, and then you'll see like those particles start twirling, and you can get a lot of control there. Again, stuff you cannot really do in Shuriken, and that's why you can create much more organic looking effects here in Popcorn. And then there's the default file I call Crowfall default here. It's the same here, only I have like 2 versions here. And I almost always create an alpha curve. So in this setup, I just have it fading in and then fading out. And you can see the particle here. They're brightest in the center and it's fading out. And this is just like a really great starting point for me. I put the rotation values in there. I kept everything else the same. And then I also set up how the color works. So basically, this is just taking the color value that I set here. So this is a float 4. The RGB are the first 4 values, and then W is technically the alpha. So I only want those RGB values, and then I want to replace the alpha with values on this curve. And the cool thing about having it done this way is I can just adjust this curve at any time. And say I want it to come in opaque and then fade out in the center. It's that easy. This graph is basically the value over time. So right here, the time says 1, but when I reference the life ratio here, it doesn't matter how long the particle lives. If it lives 10 seconds or half of a second, it's going to stretch those values over the life of the particle. So if it were 10 seconds, it would be transparent at 5 seconds here. And then this is the value. So I'm replacing the alpha with 0 to 1. 1 being opaque, 0 being transparent. It's pretty easy. It didn't take me long. I learned Popcorn for this job. But if you've worked with particle systems, it's super easy to pick up. And they have like all this performance stuff, all these perf charts right here. Whereas in Unity, you have to go to the separate perf chart menu, and it's just cool to have like always here. And it gives you way more information. I can check like how hard it's hitting my CPU and the GPU time. Oh, also Popcorn can run on the GPU. You can create GPU particles instead of CPU particles, so you're not eating up your CPU, just running on the graphics card. You cannot do that with Shuriken as of yet. There are particle systems you can use. TC Particles is a good one. We did not get to get it into our project because it's not updated with the latest version of Unity. So hopefully when that happens, we can replace some of our older particles with TC Particles. TC Particles basically lets you have millions and millions of particles without slowing down your machine because it's running on your graphics card and not your CPU on the motherboard. And that TC Particles was created from the Ori and the Blind Forest particle engine that they created, which is gorgeous. So
It is.
I'd highly recommend it. I highly recommend Ori and TC Particles. I hope we can get in soon. Gibson is cutting us off. He's got tacos. It's 2 o'clock too. This was fun, guys.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're wrapped up?
Yeah, we're wrapped up.
Cool. Let me see if they have any like last questions
Okay.
for you.
No questions? All right.
Don't you cut that stream, Gibson. Don't you do it.
Oh, this is awkward.
A few thank yous.
Okay.
No problem,
Thanks,
guys.
Greg, for the stream and the awesome work you do.
Thanks, guys. You guys keep me going every day. Yeah, we're done.
Hey, look, who's that?
Oh no! Oh, it's Melissa.
Melissa, wave.
Are y'all streaming still?
Yeah, we're done.